Hello and welcome to today's Up to Thrive Manage Your Mind Mindful Moment.
Welcome to Up to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
Today's mindful moment is a little different. I have talked a bit before about my history of gaining and losing the same weight my entire life, and then gaining more during this midlife period that my body had no real interest in letting go. I had amped up all the things that I used to do, threw in a bit more cardio, and pulled way back on the sugar in particular because that has always been my weak spot. I told myself I needed to be really super good. If you could see me, this is in air quotes. That I had to lay off the sugar for a while and eat healthy, again in air quotes, until I could remove the spare tire around my middle. But what I was doing just wasn't working like it used to. And eventually I started to think, okay, well, I guess this is just how it's going to be now. This is menopause. So for a while, I gave up, gained more weight, and eventually I decided enough was enough. I am a smart girl. Surely I can figure this out. And eventually I did. It turns out I had a lot of managing my mindset work to do that I had never really appreciated before. I learned so much in this process that I eventually decided it was something I really wanted to help other women with too, which is why I started my Midlife Health and Body Reset program. And it's also why I started working with my good friends over at the Fit Physician and coaching other women physicians who are trying to work this out too. So today I want to talk in a bit more detail about the actual mindset work that I had to do and the mindset work I help other women do to feel good in their bodies again too. Now the first step in most anything is awareness, and this was definitely no different. I needed to see where I was letting myself down. The law of thermodynamics says that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, and my metabolism wasn't any exception. I was not defying the laws of the universe. If I wasn't losing weight, the energy I was taking in had to be the same or more than my body was using. And for various reasons that I've spoken about before in other episodes, so I won't go into those today. I'm going to keep this mindset related. But for various reasons, my daily energy budget, the amount of calories my body was burning in a day at this stage in life, was less than what it had been and what I thought that it should be. Rude, I know. So one of my strategies was to help improve my body's energy burning abilities by putting the muscle back on my body that I had lost as a natural part of aging, and I became more intentional about getting some more movement during the day. But for me, a good part of what was getting in my way of losing this spare tire boiled down to mindset. There were some lifestyle habits I had created, but it also had to do with the food rules I was carrying around in my head, how I was talking to myself, the stories I told myself about food, sugar in particular, and my relationship with food, how I was using food to attempt to fill a lot of needs I would be better served filling a different way. So as I said, awareness is the first step in making any change. One of the first things we talk about in my reset program is the hunger scale. From 0, not at all hungry, to 10, able to eat the legs off the kitchen table. Where are you on the scale? Trying to find the sweet spot in the middle to eat before you get too hungry and stop when you're comfortably satisfied. I started paying more attention to when I was getting hungry and not letting myself get ravenous because I identified that as a trigger for eating way more than I needed to eat. When I got to a certain point with hunger, it was like there was an alarm going off in my head, and I needed to get as much food as I could right now. Sometimes I wasn't even really that hungry, just a bit hungry, but there was still some type of primitive response, like a fear I wouldn't get to eat again. It was definitely a trigger for me overeating. So I had to find the sweet spot of when I needed to be eating so I didn't push my hunger that far. So once I identified that, I started paying more attention and making sure I was eating regular meals full of protein and fiber so I was full and satisfied until the next mealtime. Now, if the next mealtime was going to be delayed, for instance, in that period between lunch and dinner, because my husband likes to go to the gym in the early evening, then I needed to have a light snack in that time, again, not letting my hunger get too strong. And that snack needed to be something lightly filling and not something I was likely to want to eat the whole bag of. I started identifying those foods that really triggered my brain to want more and more. Food companies have food scientists whose job it is to make their foods stimulate the reward center in our brain so strongly that our brains tell us we must have more. Just reminding myself of this was really helpful too. I was coaching someone recently who was beating herself up because she should, yes, she was shoulding on herself, but she should be able to just eat a couple of whatever it was and then put them away. It was something that her kids really liked too, and she would eat them and then they would ask her where they all went, and she kept buying them and then beating herself up for eating them again. I get this, I've been there, and I'm sure if you've listened this far, you probably have too. So we talked about buying other things that the kids like that don't cause this same response for you. For me, these alternatives are things like dark chocolate or licorice all sorts. My husband loves those, and for him, he finds it tricky to eat just a couple. For me, 1 or 2, and I'm good. So why not make it easier on yourself? If it's something they really like, why not just buy it as a treat occasionally and only get enough for that one time, not the whole family-sized package? If it's Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, how about just a few individual ones instead of a whole family pack? And then getting other treats they can have that don't really interest you all that much. So this was an area I stopped beating myself up for, recognizing that it was just a chemical reaction going on in my brain and then just creating strategies to manage that. I also started paying more attention to when my brain was telling me to eat. Was I really hungry? If I was, okay, great, then eat. If I wasn't, then asking myself why I was wanting to eat. I talked about this in a recent episode on managing cravings. If the need isn't food, then food is not going to fill the need. So important to learn to listen to ourselves, ask for help when we need it, say no more often, rest when we're tired, and find other ways of regulating our nervous system when we're anxious or flat or overwhelmed. These things can really help us meet needs appropriately rather than trying to squash them down with a tub of ice cream. I remember many years ago reading that pigs were given cereal to fatten them up. I decided cereal was a bad food, and so I made a rule that I would never eat it. But in this process, I decided to get rid of all the food rules. I decided there are no good foods, there are no bad foods. It's all just food, and we all have an energy budget that we get to decide how to manage every single day. Now I have all brand cereal most mornings of the week with some type of fruit, and it's how I get a good portion of my daily fiber, and my gut has never worked so well. I don't get bloating and pains, and I've lost the midsection belly fat, so that really was a silly rule to begin with. Along with the food rules, I banned excluding foods, in particular sugar. I've always told myself it's my kryptonite and that I could not control myself around sugar. And so I would go through periods when I would completely cut it out. But if I tell you, you absolutely cannot have something, especially if it's something you really like, then you're going to have a really hard time not thinking about it all the time. And the desire to have it will build, and then often the flood dam breaks and all bets are off. You can only white knuckle it for so long, trust me. For health, it is true that it's important to eat a wide and varied diet full of colorful fruits and veg, and lean protein and dairy and seeds and grains and nuts and healthy fats. But there also has to be some room for the things that don't fit on that list, like Reese's peanut butter cups and ice cream. I've said before, I practice an 80-20 approach to life, really. Roughly 80% of the time, I'm absolutely nailing it. And 20% of the time, not so much. And that works perfectly for me and many of the women I work with too. Hey, before you go, if you're a midlife woman who wants to feel better in your body, whether that means improving your health, building strength and confidence, or working towards weight change in a kinder, more sustainable way, I have created something especially for you to support you. It's called the Midlife Health and Body Reset Kickstart Guide, and it's a free 7-day foundations guide to help you understand what's going on in your body in midlife and what actually makes a difference from here. You can download it using the link in the show notes. And if you're ready to take that work to the next step and you would like some personalized support to make it work, I run a 12-week midlife reset program where we work together on body recomposition, so losing body fat while regaining muscle, the absolute best thing we can be doing in midlife to combat midlife metabolic convergence. You get a custom strength training program from an exercise physiologist, weekly coaching with me, personalized nutrition guidance, and accountability to help you actually follow through. If that sounds like what you need, head on over to optothrive.com to find out more about the program and maybe even book a call with me to ask me any questions that you have, see if we're a good fit, and see if this program's for you. I hope you've enjoyed this Manage Your Mind mindful moment. And if you have, and you can think of someone else who might enjoy it, please pass it on. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast to make it more visible to those who might get something out of it too. Have a great week, everyone. And until then, I hope you opt to thrive.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts with medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at optothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.